this is a letter that many of you signed, many of my fellow Democrats. I've spent my life in this party. I've devoted my life to the values of this party. 102 people signed this. This itself is evidence of the problem that this hearing was convened to address. This is an attempt to censor a censorship hearing. The charges in this, and by the way, censorship is antithetical to our party. It was appalling to my father, to my uncle, to FDR, to Harry Truman, to Thomas Jefferson, as the chairman referred to. It is the basis for democracy. It sets us apart from all of the previous forms of government. We need to be able to talk, and the First Amendment was not written for easy speech. It was written for the speech that nobody likes you for.
Okay, so I just want to say, if you guys like the content and you want to support me, check out my new merch shop. I got some tinfoil hats. I got my brand new Free Trump mugshot shirt. Check out the link in the description, tvsmerch.com. I got some other cool gear over there. After being censored all summer long, ever since he announced that he was running for the Democrat nomination, RFK is finally indicating that he might be going independent. He might run third party, because what's happened is he's decided to run against Joe Biden. Powers that be, whether it be the media, people who run social media, and even the DNC, have conspired against him and decided to push him out of the race to keep him from the eyes of the public. So normally during the presidential election season, you will have debates. If you have multiple candidates on the Democrat side, like we do now, we got RFK Jr., we got Marianne Williamson, we got Joe Biden. There should be Democrat primary debates so the people in the Democrat Party can see which president that they want. But the DNC has decided to go against this. So they shut down debates. They say, you know what? Joe Biden is our guy, because Joe Biden is a decrepit old man. We can manipulate him. He doesn't really run anything. We can run the country without having a smart mind in power. So if we get somebody like RFK, this is going to be bad for business, because the last thing that we need is a strong man who can think for himself. So they canceled all of the debates. The media, CNN, NBC, CBS, and all of them have conspired to keep this man off TV. He was on the campaign stump giving a speech. He had a YouTube channel. While he was giving his speech live on YouTube banned him. And you're telling me that these organizations haven't conspired together to silence this man? Because they are afraid to let the American people decide for themselves. See, this is that hive mind mentality of the Democrats. First, they let the DNC have super delegates in their party. So in most cases in the Democrat primaries, the voters' voices are partially suppressed. Talk about voter suppression. For example, back in 2016, when Hillary was going against Bernie Sanders, these super delegates, whose votes are worth hundreds of times those of normal citizens, these super delegates already conspired together and already lined up and said that they were going to support Hillary Clinton, which meant at the start of the primary, before a normal citizen even voted, Hillary had a massive lead in delegation points, because the DNC creates this handicap where they get to pick. They have a lot of weight, put their thumb on the scale and say, damn, what the voters want. See, you don't have this in the Republican Party, but these voters let the DNC get away with something like that. And now what are they doing this year? We got 4 people running for the Democrat nomination, and the DNC said, you know what, screw all y'all, we're not doing a debate. On top of that, all the polls indicate that it's a very high chance that RFK Jr. can win Iowa, and they can win New Hampshire. The first 2 states for decades have been the first 2 states in primaries. So the DNC changed primary dates. They put South Carolina first because they know that these blind Negroes are going to vote for Joe Biden no matter what. They're going to vote overwhelmingly for Biden in South Carolina. So they don't want the president to be defeated in the first 2 debates. They're doing all this suppression, all this censorship of RFK Jr. They've also engaged in character assassination, talking about, oh, he's a tinfoil hat conspiracy theories, talking about vaccines. They brought out, I think that was his sister, one of the Kennedy girls, and had her badmouth him. I don't know how much they paid her for that, or maybe she's just a blind sheep too, but had his own family badmouth him. All in efforts to keep the decrepit old man in power so they can control him, and the DNC and the powers that be can keep running the country, because the last thing they want is a strong-minded, strong-willed, smart man as the president of the United States. They are terrified of that. That's one of the reasons why they conspired against Trump, but that's a different story. But Kennedy, being tired of all of this, is about to go independent, and looks like he's going to play spoiler in the 2024 election. We have all these pundits and all of these news organizations coming out saying, well, this is just going to work against Trump. They're coping. It's going to hurt Biden tremendously. We're going to look at two relatively recent presidential elections where you had a third party play spoiler. Let's take a look. So this is the one that I've heard a lot of people talking about, the 1992 election with Bill Clinton versus George Bush and Ross Perot. So Ross Perot, as you can see, on the road to 270, he didn't win any votes in the Electoral College. But what happened? He won 19% of the popular vote. And what that means is that there could have been a state. Let's go down here. Let's look at Georgia, for example. George Bush won 42.9% of the vote. Bill Clinton barely beat him, 43.5%. Ross Perot over 13%. What does that mean? That means if Ross Perot wasn't in the race, George Bush probably would have won that state, because Ross Perot was a right-leaning independent, and a lot of people who weren't satisfied with George Bush, a lot of people who didn't like the rebound lips comments, the Gulf War, a lot of people decided to vote against him. They didn't want Clinton, but they voted for Ross Perot. So you can see that there are a couple of states, there are possibilities that George Bush would have won those states, meaning he would have won those electoral votes if Ross Perot wasn't in a race. Now let's go over here to the one that I immediately thought of, the one that I heard way back in the day, George Bush versus Al Gore. And we're going to go down here to Florida because we know this all came down to Florida. So we had Ralph Nader in a race as a Green Party candidate. And well, let's look at the overall percentages. So this race was very, very tight, as you can see here, neck and neck. Ralph Nader, he only pulled 2.7% of the popular vote, but it was significant because the race came down to Florida. We all know about the Florida recounts and all that. Now let's look at Bush and Gore. Both 48.8% in Florida. Look at this, man. Look at this. I mean, we're talking about 500. George Bush won the presidential election because it all came down to Florida. He won the presidential election by 500 votes. Now, let's go look at Ralph Nader. Ralph Nader was more Democrat leaning. So a lot of people who would have normally voted Democrat if it was a two-man race voted for Ralph Nader. He won over 97,000 votes. We're talking about a race that came down to 500 votes. 97,000. If Ralph Nader would have pulled a fraction of what he pulled, he still would have caused Al Gore the election. Now, if Ralph Nader wasn't in an election, Al Gore could have been the president. We would have never had this Bush number 2 as the president. So could we see something like this? Imagine you come down to these critical swing states, Georgia, Arizona, Ohio. We could have something like RFK Jr. sucking up votes. Now, like I said, these pundits are trying to say Trump. Now, he can suck votes away from DeSantis, Ramaswamy, and them. I don't think he's going to damage Trump too much. He could pull some from Trump, but not too much. But he could pull a lot away from the decrepit old man, especially seeing this man's his state of mind. He's completely senile, dementia. He can barely get around. Like Trump said, when he walks, it looks like he's stepping on toothpicks. So he could spoil this. And a lot of the Democrats are just completely pissed off now. But it's their own fault because they shut this man down. They censored the hell out of this man. And now if he plays a spoiler, They brought it on themselves. Why didn't they want to run a fair, square election? Why didn't they want to give their own voters? Because their voters are basically trained lapdogs. Because if they say, look, we're going to put super delegates in our primary, we're going to shut down debate so you guys don't have a voice, these lapdogs just go along with it. So if they're bitching and crying at the end of the day because of RFK, oh well. And I think Trump was going to win the thing anyway, because just looking at everything, man, Biden is extremely unpopular. People are begging to have Trump back. And I think the Democrats are probably going to try to find a way to cheat again. And speaking of cheating, trash Democrats, let's get back to that Bowman situation. Hey, before you go, hit that like button, hit the subscribe button, share the video. Thank you for watching.